Hello, thank you for coming to my stream or recording after stream. I hope you enjoy the chapters for today. Forget my husband, I'll go make money. Chapter 13. A fiancé with a business addiction. Will this marriage be okay? Part 4. It might be fun for the people watching from the side, but not for the prey being targeted. Esterlina was filled with embarrassment and resentment as she lowered her head and bit her lips. This was the first time her first sister had scolded her. This is all because of this idiot. Esterline couldn't stand not saying anything and glared fiercely at Aristine. Aristine, the recipient of that gaze, slowly tilted her head. Do you have something to say? Oh, that reminds me. There was something you said to me earlier. Her tone was relaxed and lazy. What was it again? Vulgar? I heard that part at least. Her smiling face was as beautiful as an angel, but from it were words that strangled Starlina like a snake. Pelamian's face turned cold, anger searching her chest because she finally managed to put out an urgent fire, yet her younger sister caused a bigger fire right after. Esterlina, a voice as cold as ice, turned to Esterlina. Apologize to her highness the princess. Sister, Esterlina protested in disbelief, but Pelamian's gaze only grew colder. Hurry up and apologize. Tell her you're sorry for the rude remark, and ask for forgiveness. Esterlina shut her mouth stubbornly. She did not want to do that, no matter what. Why should I apologize to someone like her? Her first sister was also being too much. She already said she would reflect on it earlier, even though she was angry. Pelamian looked down at Esterlina, who had turned away, and called her quietly. Esterlina. Her voice was very calm, unlike before. Esterlina flinched, and her body shook. Her heart sank and thudded in her chest. She instinctively knew that if she didn't do as Pelamian said right now, she would really get on Pelamian's bad side. She had never even imagined that such a thing would happen. She thought something like that was so far away. But at this moment, that possibility appeared before her eyes, quite vividly. Esterlina, who had gone pale, hesitated for a moment, then bowed her head towards Aristine. I'm sorry, Your Highness the Princess. Although her voice was very tiny, she was indeed apologizing out loud. For what? For my rude remark. What remark exactly? Aristine's voice was placid as she asked back. However, Esterlina felt incredibly humiliated. Despite that, she had no choice but to sincerely reply that you were vulgar. That is not the only thing I heard, though. At those words, Esterlina raised her head to look at Aristine. She didn't know how else to answer. She didn't really think about it, but before she said those things to Aristine, she just felt anything was fine as long as she could insult the princess, so she said that. She knew that that was her flaw, but everyone usually just let it pass. In fact, some people even praised her for what she said. This was because until now, Esterlina had only acted viciously to those weaker than herself or those hated by stronger people. The princess was someone she could belittle as much as she wanted. But then, why did it turn out like this? She couldn't understand at all. I'm certain you said you doubt if I'm really from a royal family. Do you have any doubts about my bloodline, Princess Esterlina? Doubt about the prince's bloodline. Esterlina felt like she was going to suffocate under the weight contained in those words. Doubting the prince's bloodline was an insult to the Sylvanus royal family. Normally, such words wouldn't have mattered at all. Irigo and Sylvanus were enemy nations, and the Irigo people used Sylvanus as the butt of many jokes. If someone was cowardly, they called them just like a Sylvanian, and a useless person was said to be like a Sylvanian on a hand. Furthermore, if someone acted haughty and proud, they were said to have a nose as high as a Sylvanian's. Sylvanus was a conquering nation, and an empire that had taken over numerous empires. However, Irigo had never once tried to humor or ingratiate themselves with Sylvanus. Unlike other countries, Irigo was not an empire, nor was it bound to a superior-subordinate relationship, because it was a powerful country that stood on equal footing. However, right now there was a political marriage with the Sylvanus imperial family at stake. If the peace treaty father wants is broken because of me, chills rose on the back of her neck. It felt like the blade of death was hanging over her. I just acted like I always do, though. I even scolded the princess everyone hates. She didn't do anything wrong, but why is this happening to me? Why? Princess Esterlina, you're not a common young miss, but the direct line of the Irigo royal family. Unlike Esterlina, who had sunk into confusion, Aristine was level without a slight shift in her pitch. As the princess, I had no choice but believe the Princess Esterlina's remark represents Irigo's position on the legitimacy of the Sylvanus imperial family. Princess, Aristine's voice was quiet, but the words she said caused an enormous ripple. Even Martin, who didn't care much about what happens to Esterlina, was shocked and called Aristine. Even when the situation looked like it could become a diplomatic issue, or perhaps had already become a diplomatic issue, the king of Irigo did not say anything. He just looked at Aristine with interest in his eyes. The same went for Tarkan, her husband-to-be. There was even a skewed smile hanging on his lips. If it was just Tarkan, then fine, but royal father too? Helamian felt dizzy. It was obvious why the king had not intervened, even though things had gotten big enough to involve Irigo's official position on a matter. It meant he would hold the perpetrator responsible for everything. No. The king of Irigo wanted a tie with the direct blood of the Sylvanus imperial family, and personally proposed this marriage. If this becomes the starting point of an issue with the political marriage, then he doubted the political marriage would break down completely due to this kind of thing. However, there's good enough chance that it will give Sylvanus a reason. The country that was pushed back in the war was Sylvanus, so Sylvanus was the first to request a negotiation for the ceasefire. Because of this, Irigo was able to negotiate from a favorable standpoint. Heavy war reparations, a marriage alliance with the emperor's direct bloodline, the opening of trade routes and portals, etc. Sylvanus was forced to accept most of Irigo's demands. But if Sylvanus holds on to what happens here today, even if they try to say it was a blunder of a childish princess, the peace treaty has just been made at this time. The Sylvanus people needed a reward that would soothe them to some extent. And such a thing happened before the delegation even had an audience with the king. It was obvious that the attitude they would have at the audience tomorrow. If the advantage we have reduces because of this, I will be left with the backlash. Esterline would be held the most responsible, since she was the cause, but both Pelemian and Martin would not be able to avoid the king's anger, because they were also here. That is not Irigo's position in any way. When Pelemian spoke to Aristine in an attempt to help, Martin also jumped in to assist. The fourth princess is still young, so she can be thoughtless. Yes, so she could not tell what she should and shouldn't say. Personally, I don't know what she would even think of such a thing. Unfortunately, she cannot tell the difference between delusion and reality. That is why I hope you can understand and generously forgive her, Your Highness the Princess. As she listened to the two of them, Esterline's face began to turn red. She understood them saying she made a mistake because she was young. After all, they had to get out of this situation even if they had to use such an excuse. But weren't they treating her like an idiot more and more? Esterline was trembling with resentment, but when she saw that Aristine was looking at her, she immediately relaxed her expression. Aristine boldly watched Esterline, who was being careful of her gaze. She looked old enough to tell what she should and shouldn't say. Her mind is childish, though. Honestly, Aristine didn't plan on pushing any further. It was the same reason why she kept attacking Pelemian but didn't say it directly. If I push too hard and start rebuking them, the Irigo king might be displeased. Scolding your own children and having the princess of an enemy nation scold your children were very different things. There was nothing good that would come out of making enemies with the Irigo king, especially when she was going to be staying in Irigo from now on. Aristine glanced at the king of Irigo and immediately met his eyes, almost as if he had been watching her. They say smiling brings about affection, then she should smile as much as possible. Aristine gave a bright smile. That's the end of chapter 13. Chapter 14. A fiancé with a business addiction. Will this marriage be okay? Part 5. However, there was someone who interpreted Aristine's affection, smile very differently. Pelemian was worried that Aristine was about to tell the king something and quickly opened her mouth. Aristine, Esterline, you have to apologize to the princess for all your wrongdoings. Hearing that, Esterline was startled and turned to look at Pelemian. Elder sister, What did you say earlier about someone making excuses instead of admitting their faults? Esterline's mouth opened and closed a few times, then she finally shut her mouth. Even though she wanted to answer, she couldn't because she didn't remember. You yourself said that such behavior makes one doubtful of their bloodline. If you're truly the princess of Irigo, you shouldn't act in such a way that creates doubt. I was just saying that. I didn't really mean anything by that. If she knew those words would drag her down like this, she would have never said it. She wanted to make excuses, but Pelamian's eyes did not allow for any objection. Apologize formally and properly, like a member of a royal family. Formally. Properly. Wait. No way. Is she telling me to get on my... Esterlina's face turned white. Her eyes darted left and right, looking around her. There was no one to come to her aid. The person who was most likely to take her side in this place was Pelamian, but for some reason her first sister kept criticizing her. The princess couldn't even say anything to me when elder sister was on my side, until elder sister got angry. It was only after her elder sister got mad that the princess started to act high and mighty and talk nonsense like a hole was poked in her mouth. If elder sister didn't get angry with me in the first place, The princess wouldn't even be able to make a peep at what I said, and there would be no problem here. Esterlina resented Pelamiel. She didn't know Pelamiel got angry, nor did she recognize who made Pelamiel that way. Subconsciously, she turned to the king, looking for help, but his blue eyes were impossible to read, and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. But one thing she knew was that he had no intention of helping her. This was really the end. Esterline squeezed her skirt tight. I, Esterlina, with Princess of Aragon, apologize to your Highness Aristine, Princess of Sylvanus. Bearing the surging resentment and humiliation, Esterline slowly dropped to her knees in front of Aristine. I didn't plan on going this far, though. Aristine was somewhat surprised to see Esterline kneeling before her and bowing her head. She just felt it would be better to shut the prince's mouth during the tea time, in order to appeal her ability to Tarkan. She wasn't particularly upset about it, and waiting and getting Esterline to kneel didn't benefit her in any way, although she didn't intend for it. The princess had already knelt, so it will be better to act like I'm letting it go instead of showing my surprise. At best, it will break off the mood which was firmly in her court, which was firmly in her court. By the way, I wonder if Tarkan likes this. That thought suddenly appeared in her mind. From what she could tell, Tarkan looked like he had a lot of things piled up against his half-siblings. They say people usually feel delighted when someone who normally acts cocky or rude to them gets on their knees. If that's the case, then this is great, isn't it? While Aristine was absorbed in thought, Esterlina sluggishly looked for what else to apologize for. I dared to speak hastily before thinking, and I have offended you. Still no reply. Esterlina couldn't bear the weight of the silence and kept spitting out apologies. I was the one who didn't know basic manners. I have never doubted your bloodline. Princess, please forgive me. She bowed deeper to the princess, who was ignoring her, and asked for forgiveness. This was the first time in Esterlina's life that she had to do such a thing. Tarkan looked at Esterlina kneeling on the floor, with indifference in his eyes. The arrogant and reckless fourth princess was apologizing, and on her knees at that. Suddenly, Tarkan was curious about what Aristine was thinking. Is she enjoying it, since she's paid them back for the insults? With that thought in mind, he turned to look at Aristine, and her pupil eyes were shining brightly at him. Her eyes sparkled like a star's sprinkle in the dawning sky. She's definitely enjoying herself. Even if you could say she was different, she was too different. How was that? What do you think? Aren't I good? I'm useful politically, right? I bet this is worth stamping yourself. There was no expression on her face, but her sparkling eyes told him everything, and he couldn't help but laugh. Laughing directly at her would be awkward, so Tarkan pretending to hold his chin and cover his mouth. That was definitely not the expression she should have, as a princess who just made the princess of another country kneel with just a few words. Now that the thought about it, this woman didn't look particularly upset when Esterlina insulted her the first time. Her reaction was something more like, did something just burp? He thought she was just hiding her emotions well, but she really didn't think much of it. Then again, he was firm even then. I remember how firm and confident she looked despite her dirtiness when he saw her for the first time. In contrast to that, her body was extremely light and thin, and her waist fit in his hand. Tarkan furrowed his brows and was about to look away from her but at that moment, Aristine smiled at Tarkan. Her long lashes curved her lips, which in a line curled softly. Sunlight fell on her full white cheeks. The spring breeze blew in through the open window, and her silver hair, which seemed imbued with lilac petals, fluttered towards him. Tarkan narrowed his eyes. Before he could show any reaction, Aristine turned around. It's still too early to be surprised. Aristine thought carefully. He felt like Tarkan was seeing her again, so she was in a good mood. I mean, I still have to make you crawl and beg to be my business partner. This little thing was just a taste. Simply dealing with the kid who tried to attack her first was not much of an appeal. Good. Now then, Aristine looked down at Esterline, who was kneeling on the floor. It was time to clean up the situation. That was the end of chapter 14. Chapter 15. A fiancé with a business addiction. Will this marriage be okay? Part 6. Oh dear. Aristine gave Esterline a gentle smile. I was just asking if you have something to say. I didn't think things would go this way. She clicked her tongue softly and continued speaking. I don't feel comfortable seeing the princess on her knees like this. Here, let me help you up. At the sight of Aristine helping Esterline to her feet was the very definition of a superior position. She spoke in a relaxed manner and showed tolerance and generosity. Seeing this, a light flashed in King Irigo's eye. She's a bright one, Princess Aristine. Aristine never showed any signs of anger until Esterline got on her knees. She did not scold them, nor did she ask for an apology. Palemian acted first before she did anything. She is well aware of her political position and is utilizing it. His second daughter was a quick-witted child. It was unexpected for her to agitate and drag around Palemian, who was always in tune with her surroundings. If even a single thing went wrong, Aristine could have been branded with the stigma of breaking the peace. How bold, but moderate at the same time. It was never too much. If Aristine had gone over the line just a little more, the situation would have worsened, and the result would be far worse than making Esterline stay still. Irigo and Sylvanus had been in a hostile relationship for so long, and were only now trying to form a friendly relationship. Esterline was rude, but in this situation, what happens if the princess of Sylvanus asks an Irigo princess to kneel down and beg? The barely budding peace will shatter like thin ice. Even more, since Irigo was the victorious nation, while Sylvanus was a losing nation. But what about the situation now? The result was simply an elder princess rebuking a younger princess. So it became Irigo's internal affair. Now, the king was looking forward to what Aristine was going to do, so he just watched in silence. But even if he wasn't, the king couldn't exactly find anything to fault her for. There was nothing in Aristine's speech that he could nitpick. Even if he had something to nitpick, she had already made holes to skip. And here I thought it would be great if she at least knew how to look at people in the eye. The king's gaze swept over Aristine's expressionless face. As a matter of fact, the one he wanted was of course the second princess of Sylvanus, who would possibly want the princess when she had the major drawback of being in prison. When he heard that the first princess would be the one coming, he clicked his tongue and frowned. It was unfortunate, but he felt it didn't matter. The important thing was that it would end this war and erase Tarkan's political weakness. She wasn't confined because of a defect in her body or because there was issues with her bloodline or legitimacy, just that the emperor hated her. With Tarkan as outstanding as he was, the king wanted Tarkan to meet a brilliant political partner, but it will be fine as long as she's alive and causes no trouble, since she provides the minimum value, is what I thought. The king shook his head in resignation. It had been a very long time since his judgment or thoughts were completely wrong. But it was a pleasant miscalculation. Ha! The emperor of Silvanus didn't recognize such a jewel, and sent it to Irigo. He was always greedy and a stupid man, anyway. Have a seat instead of standing around and making a fuss. You suddenly interrupt my tea time, and you're chattering. The king gestured to the prince and princesses, wrapping up the situation. Only then did they realize they had been talking without sitting down, and their faces flushed. It meant Aristine had shaken them up that much. That's right, your majesty. Yenike was surprised. Yenikarina clung to the king's arm, acting cute. She blinked her eyes and whispered like a songbird. Why is everyone acting like this on such a happy day? Like saying rude things to the princess or getting angry with her younger sister. Estolina and Palemian flinched when Yenikarina's gaze fell on them. Yenike is so sad. She made a tearful face and turned to look at Aristine. We will be a family soon. I can't believe this happens the first time we see each other. What if the princess misunderstands and thinks we don't like her? It was a cute and face mixed with grievances. When Aristine didn't give any reaction, Yenikarina turned to her and began to talk to her exclusively. I don't know why everyone is acting like this with you, princess. Her big eyes were the same shade of turquoise blue as the king's. Yenika feels like she has one more big sister, so it makes Yenika very happy, you know? Then she laughed cutely. Aristine, who was still watching this behavior, slowly curled her lips. When Aristine returned her the smile, Yenikarina stretched her hand to Aristine in a friendly manner. So can Yenika call you Sisterina, princess? Aristine's smile deepened. Of course you can. Wow. Yenikarina smiled brightly and put her hand on her chest. Her expression was as lovely as her gesture. It's like I'm looking at my youngest sister. Aristine smiled faintly as she recalled her youngest sister in Silvanus. The second princess, you mean? Yes, she's very pretty and lovely. That was truly the type of child she was. She was like that when Aristine saw her at the very young age, and the same when Aristine saw her through the Monarch's sight. Indeed, she was quite lovely even when she got me confined. Aristine's faint smile deepened like a blooming flower. You think of Janica like your youngest sister? That makes me so happy. I don't think that's good. Yenikarina blushed like she was embarrassed, but it seemed as though she couldn't hide her joy and excitement. Her eyes twinkled with delight and curved in the shape of a half moon. But under the innocent face was a completely different thought process. This is so easy. As expected, this adorable face of hers was her most powerful weapon that worked on anything. Even Aristine, a foreigner who was captured immediately and infatuated. Then again, she has only lived alone in confinement, so I'm sure she'll gladly bend over backwards if anyone is a little kind to her. After Aristine came to Irigo, she was probably surrounded by Irigo people who were a head bigger than her. So when she sees someone as cute and lovely as Yenikarina, of course her heart will be moved. Plus, my frame is a bit similar to hers. I'll probably remind her of her home country too. Yenikarina's maternal grandmother was from a foreign country. So she inherited that blood and had softer features compared to other Aragonians. Hence, why she reminded the princess of her younger sister. Ah, how boring. I can't even embarrass her in front of royal father, and it'll be annoying if this idiot likes me too much. Karina glanced at her royal father. King Irigo looked satisfied with Aristine. Did not even bother hiding it. For now, I think I should act close with this idiot. Only then will father be happy with her. Let's think of this in a good way. It will be easier to stab her in the back later. As that thought crossed her mind, she turned to look at Tarkan and immediately made eye contact. Karina gave him a polite and adorable smile. She felt a twinge of delight when disgust appeared on Tarkan's face. Anyway, if I coax the damn princess, well, it will surely be helpful to Big Brother. Might as well advise Aristine not to get close without Tarkan. The princess would definitely long for human warmth, since she had been alone for a long time. There was Jenny Karina, whose approach was bright and friendly. Then there was her scary political marriage partner, who was big, rough, and stained with demonic blood. Moreover, he didn't love the princess. Just think, who will the princess be guarded against? Right, that will be quite fun, actually. Jenny Karina smiled softly at Aristine. Sister Rina, if there's anything that bothers you during your stay in the palace, you have to tell Jenica. Jenica will help you with anything she can. Anything at all, really. Including your relationship with your husband, I mean. That was what she thought, Jenny Karina. That's the end of chapter 15. I think that's everything for today, and thank you for watching. Well, hearing me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope my voice was as clear as possible. And I hope you're looking forward to the next one. Please give a like or subscribe if you want. But I'm more looking forward to if you guys can support the original work. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Bye.